Whispers among stars. Admiral Joran Vex stood silent on the observation deck of the Castorian flagship Inexorable, his 4 amber eyes narrowed at the endless void beyond. His scaled fingers tapped rhythmically against the railing as he contemplated the unsettling reports crossing his desk with increasing frequency. "You can't seriously believe these tales, Admiral," said Strategic Officer Pellara, her tentacled appendages typing furiously on multiple holographic displays. "Ghosts of human ships. The species has been extinct for nearly 2 centuries. Vex didn't turn to acknowledge her. "Extinction is a certainty only when witnessed, Pellara. The collapse of Sol was witnessed by none. The official history was simple: humanity had reached for the stars too quickly, pushed their sun beyond stability with experimental energy extraction. The resulting nova had taken Earth and most of their colonies with it. What remained, scattered outposts and ships, were easily subdued or absorbed by the expanding empires. That was the story taught to every youngling in the 17 united species of the galactic hegemony. That was the comfortable lie. The mining station on Velar 9 reported contact with unidentified ships bearing ancient human markings," Vex continued. "Before communication ceased entirely." Pellara's movements faltered. "Coincidence? Likely raiders using salvaged human tech to inspire fear. Raiders don't erase planetary defense systems without triggering alarms." Vex finally turned, his broad shoulders tense beneath his ceremonial armor. "Raiders don't disappear entire battalions without firing a shot." A technician interrupted, approaching with visible apprehension. "Admiral, we've detected anomalous energy signatures in the Procyon sector. Nothing matches our database." Vex's eyes narrowed. Procyon, an abandoned mining sector deemed unprofitable after initial surveys. No one had reason to be there. "Put it on screen," he ordered. The massive viewing wall shifted, stars blurring as it focused on a distant point. At first, there was nothing. Then, slowly, a shape emerged from what appeared to be empty space, a massive vessel, angular and brutal in its design. Unlike the sleek bioorganic ships of the hegemony, this was a monument to industrial warfare: scarred metal, visible weapon emplacements, and engines that burned with impossible brightness. "Magnify," Vex whispered. The image zoomed, revealing faded markings on the hull. Though weathered by time and space, the symbols were unmistakable: Yusef Prometheus. "United Systems Earth Federation," Pellara translated, her voice hollow. "Impossible. Their fleet was destroyed in the Great Purge." She stopped abruptly, realizing her error. Vex turned slowly. "The Great Purge? Not the solar collapse?" The observation deck fell silent. "It seems, Strategic Officer, that you've been privy to classified history." His voice carried no accusation, only grim confirmation. "The truth reserved for high command." Pellara's chromatophores paled. "Admiral, I don't," Vex raised a hand. "I've long suspected. The official story never accounted for humanity's resilience. Their adaptability. The truth had been buried deep: humanity hadn't destroyed themselves. The Hegemony Council, fearing their rapid technological advancement and expansion, had orchestrated their downfall. Not a nova, but a coordinated attack on Sol's stabilization grid, making it appear like human error. The survivors were hunted across the stars in what military records called the Great Purge. But some had escaped. Hidden. Waited. "Sir," the technician called, voice trembling. "The vessel is moving. And, it's not alone." The view screen shifted again, wider angle. Behind the first ship, more shapes emerged from what they now realized was an advanced cloaking field, dozens, then hundreds of vessels of varying sizes. A fleet that should not exist. A transmission cut through every communication channel, bypassing encryption protocols with ease. The voice was calm, measured, human. "Attention Castorian vessel. This is Commander Jace Harrow of the Terran Reclamation Fleet. Your presence is noted. Your intentions will determine your fate. Vex felt a chill despite the environmental controls. Open a channel, he ordered. Sir, they've already opened one, the communications officer replied. They're simply waiting. Vex straightened his uniform and stepped forward. This is Admiral Joran Vex of the Castorian hegemony. Your presence in this sector violates multiple treaty agreements. A soft laugh answered him. Treaties agreed upon after our supposed extinction. How binding could those be for the dead, Admiral? The human species was believed destroyed in the solar collapse, Vex stated carefully. Believed, Harrow repeated. Convenient beliefs often replace inconvenient truths. We never collapsed, Admiral. We never burned. We remembered. The main viewscreen shifted to show the commander, a human woman with dark skin and silver-streaked hair, wearing a uniform that bore little resemblance to the gaudy ceremonial attire of hegemony officers. Hers was functional, battle-worn. For 173 years, we've hidden in the shadows of your empire, Harrow continued. We rebuilt while you forgot. We studied while you grew complacent. Screens across the inexorable began displaying data, classified hegemony files, military positions, defense codes, all scrolling too quickly to comprehend. We know everything, Admiral. Every world you've conquered. Every species you've subjugated. Every lie you've told about us. Vex's composure cracked. What do you want? Recognition, Harrow answered simply. And remembrance. The transmission ended abruptly, but the human fleet remained. Minutes later, emergency transmissions flooded in from across hegemony space, similar fleets appearing near critical installations, colonies, and military outposts. Not attacking, simply revealing themselves. A second officer approached Vex, datapad trembling in his hands. Sir, High Command is demanding explanations. Similar vessels have appeared in 17 sectors simultaneously. Vex stared at the ancient warships, realizing the truth that had been hidden from even him. The humans hadn't just survived, they had prepared. This wasn't an invasion force. It was a statement. Send word to the Council, he said quietly. Tell them the Forgotten have returned. And they remember everything. The Awakening Protocol. Deep within the asteroid belt of a forgotten star system, where radiation storms kept curious explorers at bay, the command center of Nexus Station hummed with activity. This massive installation, hollowed from a planetoid and hidden beneath layers of stealth technology, had been humanity's nerve center for over a century. Commander Nadia Blackwood stood before the central strategic display, her weathered face illuminated by the blue glow of countless tactical holograms. At 58, she carried herself with the rigid discipline of someone who had spent her entire life preparing for this moment. Her dark hair, streaked with gray, was pulled back in a severe braid that reached her mid-back. Status report on Phoenix Protocol, she demanded, eyes never leaving the massive display where red dots appeared across the galaxy map, each representing a human fleet revealing itself simultaneously. Director Tomas Hudson, head of intelligence operations, stepped forward. His prosthetic right arm whirred softly as he manipulated the holographic controls. Though barely 40, his face carried the lines of someone who had witnessed humanity's struggle from the shadows. All sleeper cells activated on schedule, Commander. Emergence sequence at 97% completion, he reported. The Castorian flagship has made contact with Harrow's fleet exactly as predicted. Nadia nodded, a rare hint of satisfaction crossing her features. And the Council? In complete disarray, Tomas allowed himself a thin smile. Our intelligence suggests emergency sessions have been called in all 17 capital worlds. Their military response is fragmented, uncoordinated. Lieutenant Farah Okoye, their youngest senior officer at 32, monitored communications from her station. Her fingers flew across adaptive controls as she processed incoming data. Commander, she called, we're receiving authentication codes from all resurrection vessels. The Lazarus Protocol is complete, all hibernation facilities are now active and reporting full operational status. This was perhaps the most crucial news. While the military display garnered attention, humanity's true achievement had been the preservation of its civilians, millions of people hidden in stasis facilities across uncharted sectors, waiting for the day when it was safe to awaken. Families who had sacrificed normal lives for the continuation of their species. My grandfather once told me stories about Earth's final days, Nadia said quietly, almost to herself. How the Council smiled through diplomatic channels while positioning their fleets. How they triggered the solar destabilizers and blamed human engineering. Then hunted the survivors like animals. She turned to face the command staff, her voice hardening. But they missed something fundamental about humanity. We don't just survive, we plan. The massive screens shifted to show various emergence points where human vessels had revealed themselves. Some were ancient warships, preserved through ingenious engineering. Others were newer constructions, built in hidden shipyards over decades. All incorporated technology that had evolved in isolation, free from the standardized paths of hegemony development. Colonel Viktor Dragunov, their military strategist, stood from his station. His tall frame carried old battle scars from the early days of hiding. The hegemony defense network is attempting to coordinate a response, but our countermeasures are neutralizing their communications. Their quantum relays are experiencing unexplained malfunctions. Not unexplained to us, Tomas interjected. Project Whisper has been infiltrating their systems for decades, planting dormant code. They just never noticed because they were looking for attacks, not patience. A junior officer approached with a secure data pad. Commander, we've received word from General Thorne. The reclamation has secured the Perseus archives. A collective murmur swept through the command center. The Perseus archives contained the true historical records of the galaxy, including evidence of the planned extinction of humanity. For generations, the Council had maintained careful control over these facilities, ensuring their version of history remained unchallenged. Broadcast status? Nadia asked. Initiated on all frequencies, all languages, the officer confirmed. The truth about the purge is being transmitted across every hegemony world. Nadia nodded, turning back to the strategic display. And so begins Phase 2. The command center doors slid open as Dr. Eleanor Reed entered, her lab coat exchanged for the formal uniform of Diplomatic Corps. At 73, she was one of the few who had actually been born on Earth before its fall. Her presence always commanded respect. She had been instrumental in developing the hibernation technology that had preserved their people. The ambassadorial teams are prepared for deployment, she announced. Though I wonder if the Council will actually agree to meet. They'll meet, Colonel Dragunov said firmly. They have no choice. Our fleets are positioned at every major junction point in their supply network. We're not attacking, but they can't ignore us either. Dar. Reed's expression remained skeptical. 170 years of hatred doesn't disappear with a demonstration of force, Colonel. This isn't about force, Nadia corrected. It's about leverage. For the first time since the purge, we're negotiating from a position of equality, perhaps even advantage. The strategic display updated as new information flowed in. Hegemony military vessels were mobilizing but maintaining distance from the human fleets. No shots had been fired, yet. Incoming transmission from the Council chambers, Lieutenant Okoye announced. Priority channel. They're requesting to speak with our leadership. Nadia straightened her uniform. Put them through to the diplomatic suite. Dr. Reed, Colonel Dragunov, with me. As they left the command center, Tomas called after them, remember, Commander, they believed they were writing our epilogue. Don't let them control the narrative now. In the diplomatic suite, a semicircular room designed specifically for this moment, Nadia took her position at the center of a curved table. The wall before them shimmered as the holographic projection system activated, revealing 7 figures, the High Council of the Hegemony. Grand Arbiter Zeltorax, a tall, avian being with iridescent feathers, spoke first. His voice carried the artificial calm of someone trying to maintain authority in chaos. I speak for the unified hegemony. Your unexpected return has created considerable disruption. Disruption, Nadia repeated, letting the word hang. An interesting choice to describe the re-emergence of a species you attempted to exterminate. Ancient history is filled with misunderstandings, another counselor interjected smoothly, an amphibious being whose name Nadia recalled as Proconsul Savar. Not misunderstandings, Dr. Reed said, her voice carrying the weight of personal memory. I was there when your peacekeeping fleets opened fire on civilian transports. I watched Earth burn not from natural causes, but from targeted strikes on our stabilization grid. Colonel Dragunov leaned forward. And now the truth is spreading across your worlds. Your military leaders are receiving proof of your deception even as we speak. Grand Arbiter Zeltorax's plumage flattened, a sign of agitation. What do you want? Reparations? Territory? Recognition, Nadia answered simply. Humanity exists. We have always existed. And we will never hide again. The transmission ended, not by either party's choice, but as scheduled. A demonstration that humans now controlled even the flow of communication. As the projection faded, Nadia turned to her colleagues. And now we wait. They'll call again, this time with fewer lies. Outside in the void of space, humanity's hidden fleets maintained their positions, a silent reminder of a truth the galaxy had tried to forget: some stories don't end, even when the historians close the book. Council of Denial. The Galactic Council's emergency chamber had never witnessed such disorder. The massive amphitheater, designed to showcase the hegemony's unity and power, now resembled a chaotic marketplace as representatives from 17 species shouted over one another. Accusations flew across the chamber like missiles, alliances fractured with each revelation broadcast by the human fleets. Grand Arbiter Zeltorax slammed his ceremonial staff against the floor, the sound reverberating through amplification fields. Order. The Council will have order. His attempts were futile. On every display around the chamber, historical records from the Perseus archives played in continuous streams, unedited footage of the coordinated attack on Earth, military orders authorizing the extermination of human colonies, classified reports calculating the resources to be gained from humanity's fall. The archives are forgeries, shouted Representative Morvan of the Thalassian Collective, his gelatinous form pulsating with agitation. Clearly fabricated to destabilize our unity. Then explain why they match our classified military records, countered Admiral Dresch, the Voldarian military representative. Her scaled face was set in grim lines as she studied a datapad. Records that even I wasn't permitted to access until today. The chamber doors slid open with a pressurized hiss. General Chorus Thorne of the Human Reclamation Forces entered, flanked by a small security detail. At 65, Thorne carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who had spent a lifetime preparing for this moment. His uniform bore no insignia of rank, humanity had abandoned such displays during their years in hiding. The chamber fell silent. Your deliberations seem productive, Thorne remarked dryly, his voice carrying across the stunned assembly. Though I note your discussions focus more on denying history than addressing it. Zeltorax recovered first. General Thorne, your presence here, while the chamber is under lockdown, represents a significant security breach. Does it? Thorne raised an eyebrow, approaching the central platform. Or does it simply demonstrate what we've been telling you? Your systems, your securities, your certainties, all built on foundations you never truly examined. He activated a small device on his wrist. The chamber's massive security doors sealed shut with a resonant thud. Now, he continued calmly, we can have an honest conversation without interruption. Proconsul Savar rose from his seat, amphibious features contorted in rage. This is an act of war. Your fleets appear from nowhere, you infiltrate our most secure facility. War. Thorne interrupted. If we wanted war, your worlds would already be ash. We've had operatives embedded in your governments, your military, your research facilities for decades. We could have sabotaged your fleets, poisoned your leaders, or simply revealed the truth to your populations gradually until they tore apart your precious hegemony from within. He looked around the chamber. But we didn't. Because vengeance wasn't our purpose. Truth was. Director Pelix of Internal Security frantically worked at her console. Communications are blocked. Security protocols offline. For approximately 1 hour, Thorne confirmed. Just long enough for this conversation. Then everything returns to normal, or rather, to your new normal. He activated the central holographic display, showing real-time footage of human fleets positioned throughout hegemony space, not attacking, simply present. Unmovable. 173 years ago, your predecessors made a calculation, Thorne continued. Humanity was advancing too quickly, expanding too aggressively. We represented an unpredictable variable in your carefully managed galaxy. So they decided to remove us from the equation. Another display activated, showing ancient footage, the desperate evacuation of Earth as the solar destabilizers triggered cascading reactions in the sun. What your predecessors failed to understand is that humans plan for catastrophe. Even before the attack, we had contingency protocols. Evacuation sites. Hidden facilities. When the purge began, yes, billions died, but millions escaped. Not randomly, not in panic, but according to plans centuries in the making. Admiral Dresch leaned forward. Impossible. Our sweeps found every colony, every outpost. You found what we wanted you to find, Thorne corrected. The obvious. The expected. While our true arc ships, our hibernation facilities, our research stations withdrew to regions you considered worthless, radiation belts, systems with unstable stars, the spaces between spiral arms where your sensors never bothered to look deeply. On the screens, more footage played, massive underground facilities carved into asteroids and moons, generations of humans living in hidden enclaves, building and planning in absolute secrecy. We could have returned sooner, Thorne admitted. 20 years ago, we had the capacity. 50 years ago, we had the beginning of an advantage. But we waited, because we needed certainty. We needed to emerge not as refugees or rebels, but as equals. Zeltorax's plumage had flattened completely against his skull, the avian equivalent of defeated body language. What are your demands? First, acknowledgement, Thorne replied without hesitation. The truth about Earth, about the purge, about our existence, taught in every school, recorded in every official history. He continued, second, reparations, not to enrich us, but to establish a human homeland. The Arcturus sector contains 17 habitable worlds currently unused by the hegemony. We claim them as new Terran space. And third? Proconsul Savar asked warily. Representation, Thorne finished. Humanity takes its place on this council, with all rights and responsibilities thereof. The chamber erupted again, but with less vigor than before. The displays continued showing human technological achievements developed in isolation, advancements that had evolved along different paths than hegemony science. You should consider, Thorne added over the diminishing protests, that we bring considerable value to the table. Our isolation forced innovation your standardized development never conceived. He gestured to the footage showing human vessels utilizing propulsion systems unlike anything in the hegemony fleet. Your fastest ships require jump gates. Ours don't. Your communication relies on quantum relay networks. Ours doesn't. These advantages could be shared, or kept exclusive to humanity. Your response determines which outcome prevails. Admiral Dresch, who had been studying the technical displays with growing amazement, finally spoke. The council needs time to deliberate. Of course, Thorne nodded. You have 24 hours. After that, we will proceed with or without your blessing. He turned to leave, then paused. One final point of clarification: we don't seek to replace your hegemony or destroy what you've built. Despite everything, humanity remembers the value of civilization. We want to join the galaxy, but as equals, not as a footnote in someone else's history. As Thorne departed, the security systems reactivated, communications restored. The council chamber remained silent for long moments. Finally, a younger representative, Delegate Nix of the peripheral Sigian worlds, spoke. Perhaps we should consider that the humans have demonstrated remarkable restraint. They could have attacked at any time during these past centuries. Instead, they chose revelation over retribution. Zeltorak sighed heavily. The question before us is not whether to accept their terms, we have little choice in that, but whether we can integrate a species we once tried to erase. A species that, by all evidence, has now surpassed us. As the council began their deliberations, beyond the chamber walls, across countless worlds, ordinary citizens watched the unfolding story with astonishment. For them, humans had been historical curiosities at best, cautionary tales at worst. Now they were real, and their return was rewriting history before everyone's eyes. The forgotten had returned. And the galaxy would never forget them again.